I am going to get straight into this video right now. Straight into the video because I have no time. I want to get into this really quick. Hope everyone's enjoying their holiday weekend. So I think the number one thing going into the Philadelphia Eagles season, the first game, is really this run. Establishing the run game. It's got to happen early. They can't waste time on it. We talk about the skill positions of wide receiver and tight end, and we go through everything. Okay, the offensive line is pretty much worked out right now. We feel good about that going into this season. Jalen Hurts is supposed to have a fantastic year, hopefully an MVP season. And what we're looking for with this running back core is how are they going to be used, and what differences are changed from last year to this year. And approximately, a lot of things are changed. Getting an actual first-round talent in the building that's ready to prove himself, and knowing that he could prove himself and to the league, being with a team with the New York Giants that, Saquon has been the focal point of an offense. A running back should never be a focal point, ever. Shouldn't be the only weapon that people have to, that defenses have to defend. Now he's part of a team with a 1A, a 1B receiver, and to a 2, to a 3 in pretty much Jahan Dotson on top of Dallas Goedert when he's healthy and everything else behind it. I think it's fantastic. But because you don't play these guys in preseason, which we'll get more into this video later on, I think it's really important also because, look, Saquon Barkley, and my understanding, I think, is, between what he could do, catching the ball out of the backfield, whether you're going to throw screen passes to running backs this year, which they should. You're actually going to check down to running backs, which they didn't do last year. You're not going to substitute running backs like crazy. Like, if you have a good series with Saquon, you keep him in the game. You don't take him out of it. Just like last year, we went from the Patriots game to the Vikings game, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, when Kenneth Gainwell got hurt last year, they were forced to use DeAndre Swift, and he had 200 yards rushing. I mean, that's how crazy it was. I'm expecting, obviously, I don't want to see a game where Saquon Barkley is going to have less carries than everybody or just as enough carries as everybody else, because I don't want to have Kenneth Gainwell taking over this offense, especially in this running game where he's being favored more by the coaches. Okay, times have changed now. You're paying a running back $12 million a year. There is no excuse for it. Last year, it would piss me off over and over again when DeAndre Swift would have a big run. The offense is filled with juice, ready to go, like there was an excitement after a big run from DeAndre Swift, and then they would sub him out. Then he would get a 3-yard run. They'd run with him again. He'd get a 3-yard run, and then they would sub him out. They'd put Gainwell in, and then the defense would know what play we're running because the substitutions made everything so obvious. So now going into this season, now there's no excuse paying a running back $12 million a year, and he's not the focal point of the offense. He's just one of many. There's a lot of mouths to feed in this offense. We all know this. We're, Saquon Barkley better, he better, if we're on the 1-yard line or on the 2-yard line, he better score because the push is coming. So his statistics will go down because of that. But he should have 1,100 yards. He should have 400 to 500 yards receiving yards. I mean, he should do that because Kellen Moore, with this, you're going to use running backs in the receiving game, which is great. Okay, because I think dynamically you look really good because I think you have Kenneth Gainwell that you have Saquon Barkley that could do almost anything. You have Will Shipley. I think he's very dynamic, and I love to see him in the passing game even more. We only got to see a little bit of it, but absolutely love him. I think he's going to be a huge mismatch, and he's going to score a lot of touchdowns for us this year. I feel like he's going to get some big yards in the open field. No drops, no fumbles, which is good because he had problems with that at Clemson. Seems like the Eagles really fixed him up a little bit. And you could fix fumbles. You could fix that, okay? So, LaShawn McCoy had issues with that, and look what the Eagles did to him after he was drafted. So, so I think you always fix things like that. But, Kenneth Gainwell, no special skill set, but for a 5th-round pick, Kenneth Gainwell has been a pretty good player. We just never really had anything in front of him that was better besides DeAndre Swift, and, I just feel like they have favored him a little bit more, especially under Nick Sirianni's play calling, game planning. It just seems like Gainwell has just gotten more opportunity on things how they should have used DeAndre Swift, and where DeAndre Swift was in more of the passing game in training camp. And then as the games went on, they stopped passing to him less and less as the games went on during the season last year. But now, since we know so far Kellen Moore has full control of this offense, everyone's going to get a fair shot. You don't have a product behind this offensive line anymore. Not the Wendell Smallwoods of the world, the Miles Sanders of the world, the Josh Adams of the world, guys that come in and go to another team, get a contract with another team, and don't do much of anything. I don't think any running back as of recent has been successful anywhere else because this offensive line has benefited these running backs that come in. I think they benefit almost anybody. But if you actually get a 3-down talent in Saquon Barkley, we haven't had this really since LaShawn McCoy. This is the first time in a long time where we actually have an actual talent in the building that the Eagles ended up signing Saquon, which was the big the black horse type deal that we didn't really expect, but it was a big possibility. It really was up to Saquon where he wanted to take his talents and kind of wanted to do a new story with himself and revive his career somewhere else on a much better team with a better front office and a lot of weapons that have been re-signed. And on top of all of that, everything else, okay, with a quarterback that he could definitely trust and do some good things with. So I like the running back room. I like Davis Price being on practice squad. He was the best running back we've seen other than the 3 that we've seen already. And trust me, the whole running back core in preseason, I absolutely love with Lou Nichols and Kendall Milton. Kendall Milton has signed with another team right now, so it's unfortunate, but, there are bright spots at this running back core, and I think we're going to see how Kellen Moore uses all these guys and how many carries, Saquon is going to get, but you're going to have to make sure that this thing gets fixed or at least start gelling as early as possible. We really have to depend on the run game. We have to depend on these running backs, going out for passes as well and being in the receiving game as well, because it's just going to be mismatch all over the place. So someone is always going to be open, and it's really up to Jalen Hurts. This isn't a reviving year for Jalen Hurts. I know the talent that Jalen Hurts has. So for the people that are saying he needs to have he definitely needs to have a better year. But at the same time, it's not that he is deteriorating as a quarterback. He's just been put in a bad situation last year, tried to fix it, couldn't, and dealt with it as the games went on. So your route combinations, your cross routes, everything, you had none of that. No middle of the field usage. The playbook was as horrible as you can imagine. We all know how it went last year with a 10-play playbook. That's how bad it was last year. So hopefully use a lot more running backs into what we do to get those quick, big chunk yards, and can't wait to see more of that. Sorry, I'm kind of just ranting at this point, but I do apologize. And secondly, Nick Sirianni. That's really since last year, I didn't want to hear Nick any press conference. I think the last press conference I did hear from him was obviously the one from the other day. But before that, it was when he apologized for everything that happened the year before. And he put it on himself. And I think we all know whose fault it was. We know this. The one thing, if someone asked me, hey, Joe, what are you worried about when it comes to the Eagles season? The number one thing I'm worried about from the start, especially playing in a neutral area in Brazil, where this game I just hate in general. We already know this. I hate this game being in Brazil. It's a home game for the Eagles, which is just stupid at this point. And the offense not gelling enough. The defense not gelling enough. The defense is already a question mark as it is right now, but it's a mystery, but it's exciting because it's an old head coach that's coming in and really using players to their strengths and taking a lot of gambles on players. But with this offense, though, that's where my concern is because they haven't played enough. One joint practice against the Patriots, to me, is just not enough. This is another year with 2 new coordinators, and this is how you run your offseason program. The only thing Nick has control of this year is how they run this offseason program, okay? The one thing they did right was bringing back minicamp because the Eagles have not had minicamp since Nick has been here since the head coach in 21. We have never had minicamp. This is the first year it has happened. Minicamp is a learning period. Minicamp is not to see it's just a learning period, and that's all it is, okay? Once you get to training camp and you get the pads on, that's where things really become very real when you get to joint practices and when you get to the preseason games. But the preseason games is where I have, especially, you have value in joint practices with wide receivers and DBs and some things like that. Like certain positions, you have good value when it comes to joint practice. Where you don't have value, I'm not saying quarterback is not a value, but you're not getting tackled. The mindset of the quarterback being in a joint practice, he knows he's not going to be taken down to the ground. He knows it's not a real game. He knows he can make mistakes. You know what I mean? So the mindset when you're at quarterback under center and you're hiking the ball, like, that I know I'm not going to get hit on this play. I know. So it's a totally different mindset when you're playing in these joint practices. There is value there for certain positions. There is value at times, but these preseason games are just or more important. I don't know why the Eagles value this more. Why? And I'm going to say not the Eagles, why Nick values this more. This is from Nick Sirianni, and he still feels that this offseason program type, how he sets everything up for the starters, is still what the direction we should be going. I don't know. Sometimes it's worked, sometimes it hasn't worked, and we're obviously this is a year-to-year league, so we're basing everything of what happened last year. And the second thing I think has worked out for the Eagles for the offseason program, I think that these practices have been a lot more demanding than we have realized. Even old vets are saying that this is one of the hardest training camps I've ever been in. So Vic Fangio is saying, hey, if we could do 2-a-days, I would do it in a heartbeat. We know it's illegal. They can't do that. But Vic Fangio would have done 2-a-days if that was the case, okay, for these guys to put more work in. So what's on Nick's shoulders right now? Not much. We're hoping that this offseason program setting that he has done for the past couple years, we're hoping that it's going to work. And I'm hoping they don't look lost at the offense. Looks lost out there. We're hoping it doesn't happen. Like they're just like the communication's bad. The receiver's not stopping at the same way. The quarterback's throwing the ball. Just the connection. They get a lot of, like I said, you get a lot of practice reps. But when guys are actually tackling you in games, and your quarterback's not going to hit that much, that's a whole nother thing on top of it. So with this first game coming up this week, it really comes down to, are these guys gelled enough? It's just, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Like I said, like two new coordinators last year, Nick Sirianni being as one, and 2 new coordinators this year, and still we're running that same keep the starters out as much as possible, but one joint practice and playing. And sometimes guys playing against ourselves can only last for so long because every player on the offensive and defensive side sorry, I had to sneeze. When you practice against when the Eagles practice against each other, it only goes the well runs dry after a certain amount of time because every player on the offense, the receivers know the corners, their strengths, their weaknesses. The defensive guys know how the offensive guys play and who they're facing and who they're hitting, and it only lasts for so long. You know what I mean? So when you hear too much success at the end of at the end of training camp, it gets you thinking a little bit. So I've never really been a big fan of the offseason program regarding the starters literally just not touching a preseason game. I think that's a huge mistake. I'm hoping to God that we don't look foolish out there. And then by the time we get our shit together, it's going to be way too late to even win this game. The last thing I want to do is go into the link and technically the home opener week 2, Monday Night Football against the Falcons, 0-1. And I don't want to walk into there looking like that at that point. So going to Brazil, get this win as fast as possible, come home, and we just continue our journey here. So Nick, it's like, let Nick be the motivator. Let Nick be the cheerleader, which is fine because that's what he should be doing. Let Nick be hands off when it comes to anything regarding game plan. That's all I care about. The only thing, like I said, he has control over is how the off-season program works. And that is it. And that's all I'm expecting. So I think we've gotten the clues. I think we've gotten everything together as in how much control he actually has. We know it's bare none as of right now. But other than that, guys, let me know what you guys think about Nick Sirianni, his control, and do you think the offseason program is going to benefit this first game, or do you think they're going to look sloppy offensively? I'm really talking about because I think that's one of the main things. And let me know what you guys think about Saquon Barkley, this running back core. Do they need to establish the run game early? Do you agree or disagree, and why? You let me know. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more Eagles news every single day. Make sure you like the video, obviously, throughout my rants, because hitting the like button helps tremendously, and I do thank everybody that has been supporting, and I can't wait to see this offense and this defense unveil for the first time in Brazil. Friday night, ready to go, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Remember, shake what up, follow us up. Peace out, guys. Peace.